Hey everyone, so welcome to another build in public with Supabase. So yeah, what is this? This is where I am going to be building some of Supabase in public. Pretty self-explanatory. And the sort of meta goal of this is that, we're an open source community and we want other people to be contributing to open source. So here's where you get to see how we do it and some of the things that we do internally. And yeah, we hopefully will get more and more people contributing to open source, our open source or anyone else's open source. And if you are looking at becoming a maintainer, hopefully this can sort of demystify a lot of what's going on behind the scenes and just make it much more approachable for you. Okay, so this time, last time I did Postgres triggers and we were working on one of the APIs. This time I'm going to do something a little bit more visual. We're going to work on Supabase Studio. So let me pull up what it is. Supabase Studio. Okay, so what is Supabase Studio? We have this, so everything we do is open source, except for one small thing. We've got the app, in case you haven't seen it. I'm sure you have if you are watching this live stream, or maybe you watch it in the future and you don't. But we've got an app where we've got basically a bunch of projects, and then when you log in, you can start interacting with your Postgres database. So you see all the tables that are set up, a bunch of users, profiles, everything, all the auth settings. This is just Postgres row level security. You've got storage, we've got a SQL editor, everything is set up. Now the thing is that unfortunately a lot of our code, our sort of platform code, this is on app.supabase.io, a lot of our platform code is actually weaved into this dashboard. So it's got things like billing, it's got things like usage, various different secure items, and because we host databases, we don't want it to be, we don't want to expose any security concerns. So we've been holding off on opening up just this dashboard, but what we've been doing is incrementally releasing some of the parts of the dashboard. For example, we've got now the UI library, so Supabase UI, and this is an open source library. In fact, probably even easier if I go to ui.supabase.com, an open source library where we have all the components. We're starting to pull out each of the individual components like panels, drop downs, buttons, theming. Everything is built into this component library. Then the other one that we've got is, and we released it at the end of last month, is Supabase Grid. If I open this up. And this is actually the grid component. So it is this part of the app, the grid component, where you can, add rows, you can add columns to your databases, database tables. You can add new tables. You can start interacting with the data itself, editing the data, and you can see it's using a Monaco editor for all the text and everything. So we open sourced this part of it, and now the idea is, all right, we're getting most of the components out. So why don't we build Supabase Studio? And what Supabase Studio is going to be is the open source part, the UI basically. We're going to start open sourcing this part of the app. Now, worth pointing out that we're not going to have a whole bunch of project management. The idea is that the studio itself will be like this. You'll attach it to one project, one database, one Postgres database, and then you can do all the functionality that you would internally here, but there won't be things like setting up, new projects, setting up new organizations. That's kind of irrelevant for the open source part, especially because usually you have one piece of middleware and then one UI on top of the middleware. So this is the very start, and the nice thing is you'll get to see us build it incrementally in public. I'm literally going to start from scratch. I haven't really planned it, so we're going to do everything from planning, which I really don't do much planning. Usually I just build small POCs, and then we'll iterate from there. Okay, so let's get started. What is Supabase Studio going to be? So first of all, it's going to be the UI, the self-hosted UIs, self-hosted UI for Supabase projects. And we've already got inside our docs the self-hosting docs, Supabase docs. We've got here the self-hosting docs, down here. And this contains everything except, this is all the database, all the admin, but you can see here that we don't yet have the UI, we're actually saying it. So the idea is that you'll get this Docker Compose soon, and you'll spin it up, and it'll have everything that you need. Okay, so let's get into the Supabase UI. Self-hosted UI for Supabase projects. Now, what is it going to be built with? We'll say built with. Yeah, so pretty much everything we do internally is using Next.js. So that's a good start. We're going to build it with Next.js. We're going to use Tailwind, which actually our Supabase UI library actually uses Tailwind behind the scenes. And it leverages a bunch of the stuff that they've done. The Tailwind guys have done headless UI, for example. So yeah, this is the way that we're going to start. We're going to start using Supabase UI. What else? I think for now, that's probably all we're going to do. Start with these parts of it. Then, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. That's all the planning that we need to get started. So how would I go about starting this project? So first I know that I need to do build a Next.js app. I know what it's going to look like. It's going to look basically the same as this, with icons down the side, maybe a sidebar, the grid in the middle. Maybe we won't build all of these things, but we'll just build some of them. For example, what I actually wouldn't mind doing is maybe trying to build these docs, because they're kind of read-only and they're very basic. So maybe this is the thing that we start building, and it's just extremely basic. Yeah. And then we'll just lay out everything ready to go. So we know we've got a header bar here, we've got a feedback widget, which probably we don't need. Yeah, we probably don't need any of this drop down. We just need this bar, maybe some header bar and we need some sidebar components. And then we'll build some of these, maybe the SQL editor as well. Okay, so we'll start off building a brand new Next.js app, and inside my VS Code, hopefully you guys can see everything. Yeah. Inside my VS Code, I am inside the Supabase, the main Supabase repo, and then I am going to create the Next.js app inside here. It's going to be called Studio. This is kind of similar to how Prisma named their local thing, so it will help us to differentiate between our dashboard and the studio is sort of self-hosted. So let's start a new Next.js app, but always the way I do this is looking at the Next.js examples. So Next.js, if I look at this on GitHub, then there are a bunch of examples here. If I look at the examples folder, extend this out a bit, there's a lot of them. And I think there's one with Tailwind. Wow, they really got a lot now. Okay, so here we go. If we keep looking with Tailwind CSS, that's the one we want. Now hopefully, hope it's TypeScript as well. Who knows? App.js. Okay, so that's a bit of a pain because it's not. So what we probably want to do is just do a Next.js TypeScript, I guess, and then we'll have to manually put it in. So let's see if in the docs it actually has this. Getting started, Next.js, create next app, TypeScript. Okay, great. So let's do this. Inside, I'll close this up. Got a terminal open. It's very big. See if this asks us. You need to install the following packages. Yes, we can do that. What is your project name? We're going to call it Studio. And it's going to install all the necessary parts. Okay, while that's going, why don't we look up on Tailwind CSS? If you don't know what Tailwind is, it's a utility CSS library, and it just helps to style things very easily. Yeah, so it should be super easy for us to build quickly. Now, how do I install it? I think there are some docs specifically for Next.js. Let's see, next. Tailwind CSS with Next.js. Okay, this one says I should have done it with Next.js, but that's alright. Maybe that one's not, that's probably not the TypeScript one. So we're going to now install all these. So I'm going to go CD Studio, and we're going to install Tailwind. Then, what else do they say? If you're on, create your configuration files, next generate your Tailwind config.js and post CSS config files. In fact, I'd be surprised. Yep, didn't do that, so we'll need to do that. Then this will create a minimal Tailwind config at the root of our project, which should have there some nice dark mode. Okay, learn more about that. It will also create a post CSS config. If you're planning to use this, blah blah blah, configure Tailwind to remove any unused. Okay. Then we're going to change the purge inside Tailwind config.js. Okay. Going to purge. Now this is going to remove unused CSS from our Next.js pages. Then I need to import directly into your JSS, or I don't actually like to do that. I prefer to import it into our CSS. So inside styles, global CSS, styles, global CSS. I'm going to import it right at the top. Okay. Tailwind will swap out these directives at build time. Finally, ensure your CSS file is being imported from Pages app. So let's go to that. Pages app. Yep. Okay, cool. Now, all going well. I think that's it. We should be able to do npm run dev. Started server. Okay. So all going well. This should have localhost 3000. Doesn't seem to have started, but it could just be warming up. it's just warming up. Maybe the first time you build, I think it needs to purge a lot. There you go. So now we have a Next.js app up and running, which is great. So I'm going to go ahead and commit this just as the first init commit. In fact, before we do that, I'm going to move some of this code, Supabase Studio. I'm going to remove this one and instead update the README. Okay, inside the Supabase Studio folder. Okay, now I think we don't need any of this, and we'll build this README up at some point in the future. Okay, so that's our first init studio. Our very first, it's functioning, it's working, it's a good baseline, we can roll back to it if we need to. What I'm going to do, no, I'll leave that. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is, we want to use Supabase UI here. We're going to use some of these components. So I want to make sure that I can get started. Let's see if we've got some docs on installing. I think actually, let's just do something very small. We're going to add a button. Add a button. Okay. So first we need to install the component. Stop this. Install it, and then we're going to put some code. Import button from Supabase UI. What I'm going to do is chuck it into our index page. Oh, shouldn't have that. Import button. Don't know why that's there. But then, oh well, here we go. Here's some even better code. So we're going to copy this. I'm going to put this whole block here, and I'll add in a button below the welcome. Great. Okay, npm run dev, localhost 3000 again. So if I come here and refresh, while this is running, yeah, there you go. So we've got a button. That's nice. Okay, so we've actually reached a good point. You know, we planned how we're going to build it. And what I'm going to do is copy this into the README. Now we've got most of the key components in place. The things that we wanted: Next.js, Tailwind, Supabase UI. I can delete this file to trash. And I think I checked in before, and yeah, it looks like now, because I did a check-in before, I've made some progress. I added a button, so I'm going to add Supabase UI, check in again, and there you go. Alright, so now the task is really to make this look like this. I think we're going to make it look exactly the same. I think that would make sense. So what we need is basically a icon bar, a sidebar, a nav bar of some sort, and then lots of different sections, probably different pages. So each one of these is going to be a page. For example, here we're using the project, but then editor, table. This one you'll see is auth, users, storage, editor, SQL. So maybe we'll just make this one SQL because it might be easier. So how are we going to do that? The first thing that I generally like to do is make a component, and we're going to, you can see there's no components folder, so we have to create that one ourselves. So components, and then we'll just create one called, I'm going to put it at the root, should I? Or maybe I just organize this a bit more. So we'll start off with a new folder called layouts, and these are going to wrap. You know, we're going to have layouts so we can modify everything in one go, and then everything goes inside the layout. So we'll start with, I'm just going to call it maybe dashboard, I guess. Board.ts. Okay. And then this one should just export default. It's just going to have one thing. Export dashboard layout. We can rename this later. And it's going to be just a function, actually. Just a function, which is a React component, so we know it's going to have maybe some children inside it. Then we can just simply return. All I'm going to do is I'll create a fragment, if you know what these are. So it's like a div or an empty React component. But then I'm going to add in, I'm going to output the children. Now obviously it doesn't like that because either I need to, cannot find name div. I think actually we need to make this TSX. That's why. Okay. Hopefully rename. Okay, there you go. We now have a very basic dashboard layout and cannot find name export default function dashboard layout. Doesn't return a type, which has an implicit any type, and this one I think it actually needs to be a like React component or something like that. I don't actually know. I'll have to Google that. But the idea should be that I can now import the layout dashboard layout from where we're going to go, components, there you go, layouts, dashboard. That one should probably be called dashboard layout. Now in theory, I can wrap everything in this dashboard layout. And it might just complain about the build because, yeah, dashboard layout is not defined. So what's happening is that I need to actually, this is a function, not a const anymore. Then this one probably is going to complain. Nope, it actually worked. Okay, so the idea now is that we've got this layout and I can do all sorts of things to this layout. Like I could say class, and because we have Tailwind UI, Tailwind CSS, sorry, then these have a bunch of things like BG color, background color. I think somewhere here, or color, background. Don't know how to find it. I just know it exists. BG gray 50. Here we go. Background colors. So for example, here's a bunch of things, colors that I can use. So if I wanted to use like background black, here I can just now add it as a class name. Background black. Then this one suddenly turns to black. So it's pretty cool. We've now got our layouts in place. We know that the Tailwind's working. We know that the Supabase UI is working. So I'm going to remove this. But what I will do is Tailwind has these, so it's got layouts as well. I don't know which one we'll use. Probably Flex, I imagine. Let's look up flex. Flex will do, yeah, a bunch of things. So initial won't grow, but will shrink if needed. So I think to get our icon bar, what we're going to do is just do like, essentially we need 3 columns, right? So I'm going to call this one a flex. You can see the outermost div has flex. Then they've got maybe a couple of items, which are this one. I'll remove. This one should be class name. And then finally, the third one, which is going to contain all the children, should be a, I think it's flex grow or flex 1. Now let's see how we're going with this. Okay, we've got this. So for us to see this one, I want to put a border on the side so I can see how it looks. So I'm going to say border right. Let's see if that pulls. Yeah, there you go. You can see now we've got a border here, and I'll just say border black, I think, to make it very clear. Alright, so we've got a black border. Next time, the next one, we're also going to put a border just to see our layouts. And on the right. Okay, so now we've kind of got 3 columns, 1, 2, 3. And if we look at this, then we've got 1, 2, 3 columns, which is pretty good. I don't know if we're going to need this top bar, so instead of making this whole header, putting this header in, we'll just start with a 3-column layout and we'll see if we need to change it later on. Okay, but the other thing is this one, has a fixed width. This one also has a fixed width, so we might as well just chuck it in for us to try out. Andrew Smith, export default const dashboard. Yep. Const. Yeah, okay, thanks. Yes. Yeah, that change should work. PG color shade. Yep. Thanks, Silentworks. I should be looking at my comments a bit more. Okay, so where are we at? We have got 3 columns. We're going to make this one. I think even if I inspect this one, I think we've even done the same setup here. Not too sure. Yeah, see, height 12 with, oh no, these are the, okay, let's see, BG sidebar. Yeah, we actually did width 14. Okay, well, here you go. Maybe I'll just copy and paste this. Border right. And so this is the icon bar. I'm going to put that in there. And then I check there. Okay, there you go. We can see that's the icon bar. I wonder if this one's going to be the same. This one's a width 64. It is, so they're both fixed width. And we have, what is nice, a bunch of dark. I'm not going to deviate too much from our dashboard because we've got a bunch of dark elements. And later on, when we add in, light mode and dark mode, then that's going to be useful. So this would be the menu list. Great. Now let's look at our app. Okay, cool. So we've got an icon bar and a menu list. That's very cool. Okay. Now we want to probably just add in, let's just start by adding in the routes, and we can hide them later on, I think. So the nice thing is that Supabase UI has already a bunch of, well, they've got a bunch of icons, but I think actually if I look, these ones might have icons, yeah. Button, icon, yep, which is nice. So let's try this. What we're going to do is going to create inside components, another folder called nav, where we keep all our nav components, and then I'm going to create a file called icon bar. I'm sure that someone can come up with better names for these. Okay. Oh, well, okay, so yeah, there's a couple of comments. Check if flex 1 is defined. I think you're looking for flex grow, where the opposite is flex grow 0. Oh well, I didn't even realize Supabase uses, yeah, so flex 1 is fine, but yeah, I think flex grow is also fine. It just, yeah, not too sure what the difference is. But yes, we use Next.js for everything internally, so makes building a little bit easier on this one. Okay, so here I'm going to leave these errors because I need to come back and visit them, but while I'm hacking away, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to now do a icon bar. This one we don't need any children, it's just an empty component. Then I'm going to have a bunch of routes, const routes here, and this is going to be an array, and it's going to be things like, so let's see, we're going to have a key, which is going to be like, well, let's see, how many routes have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So table, editor, authentication, storage, SQL, API. Let's add in a few of these. So key is going to be table. I'm going to add a label called table editor. Then I'm going to have an icon, and I don't know what that is going to be yet, but we'll add it in soon. Then I'm going to add in auth, authentication. This one storage, simply storage. SQL, same again. What else we got? API and database. API and database. I'm going to leave off settings for now because I don't know if it's actually going to come in here anytime soon. Database. I think actually it'll probably be quite useful, but okay. Now we are going to map through each one of these routes. So here we're going to return. I'm going to create a function called, let me just format this. Create a function called render function called render. In fact, I'm going to do it this way: const render nav items. What would that be? Render nav. And this one is going to take in all the, we'll make it completely functional, so it should take in some routes. Then it's going to return, and we're going to do routes. Now this one should be probably outside the component, and we're overwriting the same. Oops. Then routes dot map, and we need to return for every item. All we're going to do is return for now maybe a div with key equals x dot key. Then inside it is going to be x dot label. Okay, this one has an any as well. I'm going to leave it. I'm going to revisit all these later. Then I should be able to simply render routes in here, render nav, and pass in routes. And in theory, this is not going to work because I haven't imported it. Okay, so the icon bar, we'll actually put it inside here for now, inside our dashboard. Import icon bar, that's handy. and then I'm going to throw it into here, and let's see. Okay, cool. It actually did work, so that's nice. It's rendered all of them. Now we want to render each one of them. We're going to wrap this as in a flex. That one probably doesn't need. So there you go, we've now got them displaying one under another. Now we also saw before that we can actually do buttons. These are going to be Next.js links actually, so I don't know if they're better to do it as a button, or we can hopefully just do the icons for now. Let's see. Where is icon? Input, checkbox radio. Can't even find icons. But I do know they exist, so like for example, if I put in here icon mail, yeah, okay, so there are definitely a bunch of icons inside it. So what I'm going to do is, let's see. Yeah, this is actually going to be a funny one. So instead of making it a string, I'm going to actually make it a component. So we'll try do icon mail for every one of these. Then, okay, let's see, button icons, don't need this. Okay, let's see if we can render each one of these. According to your own docs at least, you can use icon from feather icons. Yeah, we can. The nice thing is though, well, I guess in theory these are just Johnny, who's built the UI library, along with a lot of contributors actually, has handled hopefully some of the things that we can do inside here. I don't actually know what we can do inside it, but maybe once those docs are up, there'll be something special. Okay, let's see now if we can even just replace this label with the icon. In theory. Yep, we can. Okay, that's great. Now we probably still need a Next.js link. And I wonder, I don't know the pattern for a button inside a link, if that's necessarily a good idea, so I don't want to do it. But let's jump into Next.js. And now why do you not use anchor tags? Because just because you want you don't want to send the browser an event where it will bubble up and it will refresh the page. You actually just want Next.js to handle the event itself, and then it will do sort of a static redirect because it's a Jamstack platform. So what we're going to do is have a link, and in theory we then need to wrap. How does it look? Yeah, UL link. Yeah, so this is actually a much nicer pattern. We actually want to render a inside here, instead of a div, let's make this a unordered list, and then each one of these is going to be a list item with the key. Then inside we're going to have a link item, and is that it? Yeah, and then actually an anchor tag. So I'll put that at the end, and we need an anchor tag at the start, and format this. Okay, great. Renders all the icons. This one, icon navbar. Okay, now let's have a look and see what has happened. In fact, before I do that, I know... Well, let's have a look. Yeah, you can see, so now we have these links, and they're going, each one of them is going to yeah, the home page, which is great. The question was, don't forget the closing UL. Yeah, hi, I just dropped in today. What are we doing? We're building Supabase Studio. That's what we're doing, which is the self-hosted dashboard. Callum, end user interface for local development. Yep, nice. IntelliSense got my back. Yeah, IntelliSense definitely got my back. Cool. Alright, so now what are we going to do? Let's just check out our own library to see what they're doing. So it looks like an anchor tag, and we're doing a div. I don't actually know why we did it that way, but we've got some inline elements. It's an anchor with some height 10, width 10, margin 2, margin top. Yeah, I think we could be doing it much better. We could put some gap in between. But we do have some nice stuff. Okay, let's do this. We'll just take most of this code for the anchor tag, and we'll say class name equals all this junk. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, it didn't like that because we have a closing. Okay. Okay, yeah, so it actually worked a little bit. Spread them out, at least. Now, what we want to do is probably take away some of this stuff. So, what else we got inside our own docs? We've got just the anchor tag, then the SVG. Interesting, so then it's just the icon inside it. Which obviously has a bunch of... these ones must have size 12 or something. Yeah, okay, so that's gotten smaller. I wonder if it's got color. And for some reason the IntelliSense isn't working here. Let me just try put it down in here. Color, no. Yeah, unfortunately it doesn't. Okay, well, we're just gonna have to guess until I ask Johnny. But let's make size 20. Then what I'm going to do on these is make the... Well, I really should know what it looks like in light mode. So it's the same color, then when you hover it, it goes grey. So text grey, dark, seems fine. Okay. Then we are going to set up... I can't even see the hover, which is a bit unusual, because we've got a height 10. I'm just going to make this BG black. Okay. Maybe I need to make it a block. Yeah, that's it. I needed to make it a block. Okay. Yeah, probably want to create a TS interface to get rid of the squiggly lines. Yeah, I probably will at some point. But just not right now. Because I don't actually know how it's going to end up. Because I'm going to add some more stuff to this. So for example, now I think I'm going to add in the link. And I think it'll be something like, so this one's going to go to the editor page. Then this one's going to go to the auth page. Auth. This one's going to go to storage. And then the idea is that once, I'll just add all these here. The idea is that once we have pages, let's create one here, new file called auth.tsx. This one is going to be the same as index, but some different content inside the main. Let's just swap this out here. So this is going to be auth. Take out everything else and don't take away the main. Format this a bit. Now let's see. In theory, if I click on none of them, I need to actually make the icon bar go somewhere. Link. So here, the link should be. It used to be as something, but I think now I can just do x.link. Okay, so this one should, in theory, re-render the auth page, which is great. And you see the first time I had to build that, but if I jump back, actually the editor does not work, but let's make one more, the icon, Supabase, and this one can be just here. So yeah, if I jump between the homepage and the auth, it's very quick now that it's rendered the first time. Okay, so we've got some sort of basic icon bar rendered. Okay, which we didn't actually, it's actually been an hour. The thing is though, I spent 20 minutes streaming only to myself, so I feel like it's a bit unfair to stop. I don't know how many people, yeah, we've got quite a few people in. Alright, what we can do, I think, what's going to be most interesting, do we proceed or do we wrap it up here? I think for now, what we can do is we'll wrap it up here, and then next week, maybe I will have laid out sort of this icon bar, because I think everyone sees where the direction is going. And we here go on, keep going. Yeah, okay. Okay, I've got maybe 20 minutes more, and then I've got a meeting. So let's do 20 minutes more, and I won't do too much like of the UI stuff. Let's just get some of the other pages and things up and running, and then all the UI stuff, maybe, which is a little bit more boring, I don't know, maybe it's interesting, I'll do during the week, and then we can revisit some of the harder stuff later on. Okay, so let's just set up each page so that at least we've got the pages mocked up. Let's see, we're going to need a page for each of these routes. If I come into auth, I'm going to copy this one. This one's going to be called table, and I'll actually update this one, Supabase table. This one I didn't even update, so table. Then we need to create Supabase auth. And in fact, I won't create all the routes because I think we're not going to have them ready in time. Like, let's just focus on the API route, I think. So let's create that one. API. Okay, now we have Supabase API. This is going to be API routes. Supabase API documentation. Remove some of this crap. Then what we can do is check that our API route is working. there is no API route. So let's come back to our icon bar. Hide everything. We don't need these ones. We just want maybe the icon at the top and the API route. We'll leave the table as well. Then this one I'm going to do icon, let's see, icon table, I think it is. Table. No. Did you guys see anything that looks good? I think it might be grid or something actually. Let's get down to T. Icon table. Let's just start off with grid here. Then for the API docs, I think, let's check. Oops. Does Supabase have a Discord server? Coming soon. Coming very soon. The reason why we haven't really started it yet is because our team's quite small and we just can't handle a lot of sort of synchronous chat. Wrap up when you have to, notifications turn on, no pressure. Holding up the live stream, update the function names to Supabase. Yeah, okay, cool. So now we need this one, and I think this one is icon page or something. What is it? Doesn't actually say it, does it? I think it might be page. Let's go to feather. I think it's like page. No. Doc. Gosh, I really don't know how to find this one. Does anyone have a guess what it could be? Yeah, okay. I told you this part's going to be really boring. Let's just make it columns for now, because I think that one is close enough. And then we can fix it later. So, icon, columns, imported. This one's going to be icon grid. Okay, so we've got a grid, columns. It doesn't look very good, but we should go to now the API docs. Cool. Now this one's quite cool, the API docs, because so hides some irrelevant routes for now. Let's just check that in. This one's quite cool because what we're going to do is at some stage we're going to need like a URL. In fact, what I'll do is I'll mock this up now. We're going to have like a new folder, lib, and what I'll just do is have like for now a file called constants .ts, and in theory we should be able to get for each project the Supabase URL, which should equal some string. And yeah, so this one needs to be a string. And we're going to export const Supabase URL. Then we're going to have a Supabase anon key. Now the cool thing is, once we've got this, we can use this to get a swagger file. Now what do we do with a swagger file? Let me show you. Okay, so here I'm inside a project. It's a fake project, user management. I've got some auth, so it doesn't actually matter if you see what my API URL and key is. But if I jump into here, Supabase, this is my URL. I'm going to come here. It'll ask me for, well, first I need to go to the root of the RESTful API, REST v1. Then it will ask me for an API key, which is just my anon key, API key equals. And then I'm going to copy this, put it in my URL. Okay, so now I've got the Swagger it's just a JSON document. If I collapse all of them, then you can see, well, we've got a bunch of paths and we've got a bunch of definitions. And this is quite cool because to generate all of this documentation, you know, if we add a table inside Supabase, let's say I'm going to create a new table here called live stream, and it's going to have nothing in particular there, but now we've got this new table, and I come to the docs, the API docs, you'll see that it now has this new tables and views live streams, and it's got, you know, even the comment that I put here where I can save the description, and it's got the integer field, the primary key. So as I update the table, the API itself is auto-updating. Then yeah, all we're doing for that is just actually querying this Swagger, which self-updates anytime you update your database. The RESTful API updates. It's using Postgres, an awesome open source tool. So once we've got these two things, the URL and the API key, then we can actually just build all of this documentation, this docs that you see, using that JSON document. I just go through a bunch of the definitions. Well, let's even have a look. I'll refresh it and then collapse all. You'll see that some of the definitions here, we've got a, maybe you can't see that. Now, a definition for live stream, and it's got a description, and it's got some required fields, and the properties is the ID column is a big integer, and it's a primary key. Now we can construct all of the docs using this. So what I'll do, I think I'm not going to do it this time because I'm going to need to prepare for my meeting. So what we're going to do, maybe in the next one, is we're going to use we'll just hard code for a bit, a URL and a non-key, and then we're going to reconstruct all of these this documentation into our auth section here. So this should hopefully next time round look just like our dashboard. In the next week, I'm going to push this branch. It's on Chore Feet Studio, so you can follow along. If you want to contribute a little bit, you're welcome to come in and add some code to this branch if you want. And then next week, hopefully once we've got all the things looking good, we can just focus on the functionality. Okay, so thanks for everyone for dialing in. Just to wrap up the comments, what are we doing? Supabase Studio, the open source version of the dashboard, Swagger file. Yeah, okay, so yeah, someone was asking about the Discord, and actually, yeah, we've got GitHub discussions. So if you do have questions about Supabase, go into our GitHub, Supabase, go to the tab at the top and just ask in the discussions. Then, yeah, I think that's it. We've still got a lot of people here, but I think that's all for tonight. And next time, I promise, we'll make sure that it's not on private mode when I start the stream. Cool. Okay. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.